Welcome. Today we will be discussing Marxist Social Engineering, how it works, why it works, and most importantly, who is behind it. Now, I'm going to start this off with a general introduction into elitism. With the concept of elitism, it is a phenomenon that is found in every single point in history with every single race and every single culture. There's always somebody who is just meant to lead, somebody who is they're just better, quite frankly. That's why it's called elitism. They're more elite. They're a little bit more aware of how they relate to the world, and they think a little bit more big picture. And they have a tendency for high levels of awareness, and not only with everything around them, but how they relate to everything around them. And they're generally not as consumed by the agreed upon consensus that are subject to that time period or subject to whatever culture they grew up in. They're just by nature a little bit less conformist, and they question everything. This phenomenon is mostly seen in the men, and this is generally speaking because women need to be more conforming in order to pass their genetics on with a higher, rate of success. So they have to be a little bit more conforming. They go along with the consensus, and that's fine. So they're not at fault for that. It's just the way that it is. So how this relates to the title of this video is that this engineering that I'll be discussing, most people, of course, do not see it. The majority of people do not see it. And part of that reason is because it is most effective, this engineering, due to the fact that they start as early as possible. This engineering starts as soon as a person basically becomes conscious, which is around the age of 4 years old, by the way. That is generally when we start to remember things. And from that time period on, we spend a lot of time in schools. We spend a lot of times at daycares. These daycares and schools, of course, when they're not actually teaching you useful information, which most of it isn't, they are showing us all sorts of different media in the forms of music, television, news, movies, whatever it is. And that really makes it most effective because before we even conceive of a worldview, we're already being forced these ideas. We're already being fed these ideas that, quite frankly, are not natural ideas, and they're against our inherent programming. The things that make us human, they are against them. But this engineering isn't always effective simply due to the fact that with the nature versus nurture argument, we know that nature simply is a little bit stronger, generally speaking, most of the time. And this remains true unless there is some sort of extreme trauma, which in case nurture can become a lot more powerful. But the real reason that it works so well is because the women in our time period have been convinced that they should not value family. They have been convinced that they should have some sort of negative freedom at the pinpoint of their lives. And then you combine this with the male side of the equation, who are being actively neutered in so many different ways. So this causes, of course, them to not really want to raise their kids, especially the women. So they say, yeah, go to daycare while I go and be a slave for my job. And that is where this powerful social engineering takes place. And the way that they get this power through nurture is through emotional storytelling. That makes this a little bit more effective. And they have it figured out to a T. The same people who are doing this, by the way, are generally the same guys who did the Bolshevik Revolution and the guys who progressed Russia into the USSR. So they figured out psychological programming, psychological warfare before anybody else really did. And they got it figured out pretty well, And the way that they override the nature side of things is, of course, by trying to exfoliate nurture as much as possible. And the age that these subjects are helps immensely because they're at the prime age for nurture, to be nurtured into believing something that is against their nature. And we are taught ideas that are at a bare minimum in line with the Enlightenment in line with John Locke's nurture argument and his ideas as a whole. And it might sound a little bit crazy, but all the ideas that they originally start to teach us are metaphysically, they stem from the Enlightenment and John Locke, those ideas. So, for example, everybody's equal, the golden rule, these types of ideas, they stem from the Enlightenment. Of course, it's not just how to count that is being taught. It's not just how to read that is being taught. They're teaching us a cultural code. They're teaching us societal codes. These societal codes are not normal. They're foreign, quite frankly. They're designed for a modern world that is based on equality, humanitarian ideals, utilitarianism, and with a good hint of Marxism. Progressively, of course. It's gotten worse over time. That's how they do these things. And they can accelerate that progression depending on the circumstances and the environment of the people that are being engineered. So, of course, here in the West, we're not doing too good right now. But if we take the 90s, for example, comparatively, we were doing a lot better back then. So they had to do it a little bit more slowly in order to not piss people off. Everybody knows about the frog in the water. You got to turn the temperature up slowly. You can't just do big things. This is why the nothing happens chud is so popular, because people realize this. Sometimes things happen, but they're never actually huge. They're just kind of big. So they slowly make things worse and worse, and over generations, people don't really realize, holy shit, these are Marxist ideas we are teaching kids now, and they are coming out of these places socially engineered with built-in scripts to their fucking brains about questions that politically are controversial, and they just battle them off, especially in colleges where these things really accelerate. If you take any philosophy class in college, the very first prominent thing that they spend a little bit too much, a suspicious amount of time on is Marx. They spend a lot of time on the Communist Manifesto, which is a little bit weird. You have to ask these questions. This is what I'm talking about, the elitism. Most people just don't ask questions. They accept their life in a way that's, I'm just here, whatever, feed me, I don't give a fuck, right? But when you start to ask questions, the Communist Manifesto is, by definition, the most dangerous piece of literature to ever be written in terms of how many people inspired, how many deaths were inspired by its creation. It is by far the most dangerous piece of literature. And the counter argument to this is, okay, what about Mein Kampf? How many people did Mein Kampf kill? Let's take the agreed upon consensus and say, with just the genocides, not the World War, because the World War was a little bit more complicated. It still would have happened, arguably. Mein Kampf killed, we'll give it a gracious boost to 10 million people. Let's say Mein Kampf inspired the death of 10 million people, mostly of a religious minority. That is not even 10% of the amount of deaths that the Communist Manifesto and Marxist ideas led to. Not even a tenth. Across Stalin's reign, the entirety of the USSR, the gulags, across Mao's reign, across the Koreas, across the South Asian ranks, across the South American ranks. What I mean by ranks is rebellions, communist rebellions, at the African rebellions, some of the East Asian rebellions, and then you have Cuba and a few other one-offs. All of these combined, along with the places that it was successful in and communism was actually practically attempted, led to the deaths of well over at least 100 million people. So clearly, it is the most dangerous ideology. And the ideology itself clearly states that there has to be a dogmatic, totalitarian sense of control over ideas within the time period or society that it is being attempted to overtake, that the communist ideas are being attempted to be fulfilled in, exfoliated into. That is the only philosophical theory of great importance that holds that statement. Right-wing ideas, generally speaking, have a lot of diversity, and most of them are not fully totalitarian. In a free marketplace of ideas, right-wing ideas almost always win. This is why the left does what it does. This is why they are so gun-ho about censorship and hate speech. They use hate speech as a vehicle to censor opposition, which is why they ramp it up over time. 50 years ago, you could hate gay people. You can't do that anymore, generally speaking. Of course, there's a pendulum. But they try to, this all loops back into what I was talking about, slowly make it more and more accelerant over time, using rhetoric that targets people's empathy, which lines up perfectly well with everybody becoming a little bit more emotional as testosterone decreases and women are put on SSRIs. So everybody's feeling a little bit more emotional. Everybody's feeling a little bit more sad. So yeah, why not flood our countries with random people? So, but what this all links back into is the fact that we are still under control. We did not beat the communists. The communists are still running our societies. The Marxists, the cultural Marxists, if you want to, it's a little bit more of an appropriate term, I'd say. Culturally Marxist individuals who are looking to have a 99% of the population be slave castes are who are running societies. This is why they are replacing white people. White people, generally speaking, when we look back on our history and we look back on the standards that we had and we look back at our blood memories, we have a little bit of a high expectations for our societies. We tend to be very clean. We tend to produce very high civilizations. We've built the best civilizations in the world. So from the culturally Marxist elite who want to enslave 99% of the world, that's a big problem. They need to bring the standards down to Bolivia or the slums of Rio de Janeiro. That's their goal, basically, is have as many cattle, as many goyim, that they can fit into a slave caste as possible. Now, how are they going to do this? The first step is to start when people don't even have an idea of what the world is implanted in their minds. So, right at the peak of impressionability, this is where this starts. And to make sure that they go along with this engineering, you have to make sure that the mom, the dad, and any other influences on their worldview are subdued. The volumes of them and their ideas are turned down. That is important. So, of course, the men, we have to make their time less valuable with inflation, so they have to work more to provide for their family. And then the women, of course, during their school time are subjugated to feminism, so they're going to work anyway. So by making sure that them two do not see their kids and that the government sees as much of their kids as possible, they basically have the stage set for this engineering. Now, I also want to just add in that social media, of course, a lot of kids and teens are spending a lot of time on social media. These algorithms and the information that they display are all censored and controlled, generally speaking, as well. That being said, there are more of us than ever before, which is amazing, but we are still heavily censored, and most of the population doesn't agree with us because of this engineering that I'm discussing here. So all of these variables are in place. The kid doesn't see his parents a lot, and the school can basically teach them whatever they want because of that. There's not a lot of tension. The algorithms that these kids see are controlled. The books that they read are controlled. Everything is set up. So now it's time for the engineering to actually start. And this is just bigger than the schools. I've been focusing on the schools. This is also in music, the themes that are in our songs, the themes that are in our books that are popularized, the themes that are in our movies especially. That's a big one. Movies and TV shows. We watch a lot of those, more than most people realize. And they are the most effective vehicle of getting this engineering through, would be movies, TV. And in the future, I think video games are definitely going to be very effective at social engineering. So now we see Marxist themes in all of these things that I'm discussing. In school, we are taught the golden rule. Teach others how you want to be treated. Now, that's a great rule when you are in a small community. That's a fantastic rule. I don't disagree with that rule. But when you have a lot of low IQ, impulsive, just not very high caliber human beings running around your civilization and your town, that rule just doesn't work. It's going to get you killed. It's an inherently Marxist rule in the way that it's self-sacrificing towards other people. So that's just one of the things that I remember being taught. I know in some places it's horrific, the things that they're being taught, but we can definitely say that they are at least being taught that everybody's equal, of course. They're being primed for bigger ideas as they age in the future to accept. So they're being told that the universe is more important than everything else. And by universe, I mean the human universe. They have a doctrine that is, life is inherently meaningless and everybody is the same soul, I guess you could say. Everybody's equal in that manner. So you shouldn't judge anybody else. Don't judge anybody else. If you get raped by some Somalian, don't judge him, okay? He's had a rough life, right? This is genuinely the shit that they believe. It sounds ridiculous, but this is how a lot of liberal women, especially nowadays, think. They will get attacked, clearly, and they will somehow, because of this engineering, twist the blame onto white men or something. Because everything is about nurture to them. With Marxist engineering, there's a lot of nurture. They believe nurture is almost 100% of determination, I guess you could say, which we know is just wrong. But all of this priming primes these people to live in a one world, new world order. Everybody's the same. Everybody has no distinctive qualities, especially in their heritage, their culture, or even what makes them a person. They want everybody to be the exact same baseline equal, because if they can make everybody that baseline, they can slowly bring the baseline down. And if they but from baseline, I mean standards, I mean quality of life, I mean everything that makes life beautiful. They will bring that standard down for as far as they can go till we're basically cattle. And then we will be enslaved, practically. So, and that's how they prime it, is with these ideas. By saying that, I'm having a hard time putting this into words, but they basically want, let's take a guy from America and let's take a guy from Kenya. They want you to believe that they are the same. There's the same person in that brain. There's the same soul in that brain with the same desires. They don't see any distinctive difference between peoples of obviously vastly different makeups. We are not the same at all. But a lot of people believe that we are because of this engineering. And that is why. Because if they can make us believe that life is inherently meaningless and that life has no goal, no objective, and that we're all just here, regardless of who we are. We're all one world, we're all one life, all from the same being or something like that. Then this plan that they have to make us into good goyim cattle is a lot more effective. Because obviously there's nothing to inherently fight for, which makes you even more programmable in the reason that you live your life. You become programmable in the reason that you live your life. And that's very dangerous. Talk about dangerous ideas. And this phenomenon has only been around since the Enlightenment. That's why it's called the Enlightenment. And that's why I like to personally call it the Dark Enlightenment. Because that's truly what it is. Until just these past 7 or 8 generations for most people, depending on life expectancy, of course. Up until that, these ideas would be considered fucking insane. I mean, you would be considered out of your mind if you believed the shit that Marxists believed back then. I mean, you would be called retarded. That's because we are so far off the normal of what our ancestors and what our cultures were built on, and what makes life life, what makes life actually worth living. There are inherent virtues that make life beautiful, that make life amazing. And these virtues have been respected for all of our history until the Enlightenment. And now they are being absolutely fucked, quite frankly. There are facts to life. There are truths of what is good. And these truths stem from natural law. Now, if you have been socially engineered, you hearing me say just those past few sentences, there's so many alarms in your brain that go off about how wrong or immoral or something that those ideas are. But those ideas are the truth. Nature is the only reason that we are here. It has to be respected, and we cannot move past it yet. Maybe someday, but right now, we cannot move past it. It is very, very self-correcting. It is the most self-correcting force that there ever has been. So any disrespect towards it, it's probably not a good idea, which is what Marxism completely disrespects nature. It does not account for it at all. The reason why I'm trying to dance around the subject right now is because it's pretty hard to grasp. I'm trying to give you multiple viewpoints to understand this. So another viewpoint is the individual, the man. With Marxist social engineering, nihilism, atheism, these things are ingrained into our schools. Most schools, of course, are secular, which is, I guess, fine. But the biggest thing is that schools are very nihilistic. There's a lot of implications in the literature that we read. They make life so meaningless. They make us believe that life is so meaningless. And there's so many other primes that occur for us to be the best cattle possible for the system, for the cog. This is what I'm talking about with the individual, though. Because we are stripped from the things that make us actually who we are and the things that brought us to our peak, that brought us to actually being the highest form of man, creating the best, most beautiful places for our people, having objectively great societies with great religions and great martial codes, everything. Conquering the new world, we used to do these things because of meaning, because of life affirmations. We affirmed life. We said yes. We've been put here. My ancestors have undergone famines, wars. When I say wars, I don't mean wars. I mean wars. And they did it not for a fucking paycheck or some shit. They did it for their descendants. They did it for their people, their culture, their heritage. This is why the ideas that I just said just now are so demonized, because that is the truth. That is what humanity as a whole, regardless of race or anything, has been based on. Is protecting your descendants, acknowledging your ancestors, defending your people in your homeland, defending your culture, making sure that the life that you bring here has the best time possible, and not in a hedonistic way, but in an ability to chase virtue way, ability to chase excellence, athleticism, beauty, strength, anything. The mind, exfoliating our minds, philosophy. I feel like I sound like I'm fucking crazy, but I think you get the picture here. So, by convincing the individual man that those things are just barbaric or something, they can prime him for better wage slavery, hedonism, materialism, atheism. Those are the big three. Individualism too. They want us to believe, especially if you're white, that you as an individual, that's just you. You're nothing else. You're just a stupid little guy who is autistic, who doesn't believe in God, who maybe he's read a little Nietzsche and he thinks he's based or something, but he has no meaning. He's still an atheist. He still doesn't have any actual drive. He still doesn't have any meaning to live. This is why he sedates himself. He sedates with media, music, whatever it is, retarded ass philosophies, and spends a lot of time focusing on his job or focusing on the mundane hobbies that people take up. That is what this man is interested in. You can. I just dogged on Nietzsche a little bit, but you can also apply this to Nietzsche's last man idea. It's all kind of connected. But hobbies that just there's no meaning behind them. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hop on a treadmill, or I'm gonna fix model cars or trains. It's like, dude, you know what I mean. So he's hedonistic. He has no meaning. He's focused on his job and retarded ass hobbies. He's the perfect slave. That's the perfect slave for a utilitarian Marxist agenda. I mean, think about it. That's exactly what they want from everybody. And the problem with this, and the reason why they are doing what they're doing to Western countries, the reason why they are dividing us, distracting us, and replacing us, is because we by nature are a little bit harder to social engineer, because they have to almost lie about our culture. And when we learn about our culture and our history, it's like, where did we go wrong here? We're doing pretty good. So they have to replace us. And we've already discussed, I guess I can talk more about the replacement side of things. But the women, of course, the best way to replace of people is to subdue their women. Where do they do this? Marxist social engineering in the schools. Raised in a way that they don't want to have kids anymore, especially if they're white. That's the main goal. Make sure white women don't want to have kids. If they don't want to have kids, we're good. That's from the perspective of these Marxists, which I'm sure from the vocabulary that I've used so far, the group that I'm really trying to say. There's a better descriptor for them. By emasculating the men and teaching the men that being white and male and straight is bad, and that your history is bad, and that the virtues that your ancestors chased, the heritages that your ancestors had, the homeland that you come from, the spirit, this very spirit that makes you is evil, of course, makes the man extremely emasculated, and it primes him for degenerate subsidiaries to come in and fill the void, which it doesn't fill the void, which is why straight white men are so depressed and lost, generally speaking, in the West. And they chased hedonism, materialism. They bang bitches all the time. They listen to okay, I got to be careful what I say. They listen to a certain kind of music. They just kind of subdue themselves. They try to feel as much as possible instead of actually trying to think and gain the power and the spirit that is available in the mind and in the fist and in the very life force, the spiritualism that we are capable of, the self-sacrifice that we are capable of. They cannot reach it when they're programmed like this, which makes, since both sides are subdued so well, the women and the male, no kids, a lot less likely to have kids. There's still, of course, white people having kids, but they're not having 4 kids or more. They're usually having 1 or 2. And then let's take the quality of the kids. The kids are, of course, they're growing up in these Marxist social engineering facilities, aka schools. So that is how they are doing our replacement, because we're a little bit harder to replace. Now, with this being said, I know that was a little bit of a sad rhetoric that I just expressed there. I don't mean to make you feel sad. The ideas that I assume that you believe in listening to this, and the ideas that I clearly believe in without having to fully exfoliate them here, there are more people believing in these ideas than ever before. People are realizing. And the reason people are realizing is not because they are elitist. It's not because they are just better. It is because more of us are turning the tide. At the end of the day, the way that people develop their worldviews and these things is from information. This is why Alex Jones, his thing is called InfoWars. That is what it is. It is a war on information. Whoever gets their information out more effectively with better rhetoric will win. And that is why Marxists have to censorship. And they have to start at the very beginning of our life, or else they cannot win. They just can't. Because right-wing ideas, these what they call extremist right-wing ideas, they are innate. They are innate to us. They don't have to be taught. We realize these ideas and we realize their validity. We don't have to be taught right-wing ideas. They are innate to our being. And that is why Marxists have to do what they do. That is why they start at the schools. That is why they say hate speech. That is why they try to do what they do with algorithms in our government. Because they cannot win in an equal marketplace of ideas with no censorship. They cannot win. This is why in the Bolshevik Revolution and in general the progress or the process that it took for Russia to be turned into the USSR, it had to be extremely authoritarian, and the propaganda coming out and the genocides that had to be done, they had to be done, and they had to be done very well. And it's the same way with now. They're just doing it at a very slow pace to hopefully not piss us off, you know? But I want to circle back to what made life so meaningful before the Enlightenment. If we were not raised by our government, we would have an inherent meaning to life. We would not grow up to be nihilistic or to think that there's no meaning to life. That has to be taught. We fully understand, by nature, we have a meaning for life. And that's to bring and exfoliate a higher form of life with every step forward. That is why white men have done what they've done. That is why Europe has done what they've done. We do not need to be told what the meaning of life is, or that there is no meaning to life. It is already in us. It's already in our minds. We already feel it. We don't have to be taught. So now I'm going to be getting into why it works, why the social engineering works, which I already kind of have discussed. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about emotional programming. So emotional programming is usually done most effectively with extremely emotional rhetoric. So like I said, people are more emotional nowadays because of SSRIs and decreased testosterone. So they're a lot more primed. But emotions come first in all decisions humans make, generally speaking. So the best way to program someone is through emotions. How would you best try to emotionally program someone? You have to look at what gets them emotionally riled up. What makes people cry that isn't important? What makes people angry or scared or sad that actually isn't really real? Movies, concerts, general media. That is what makes people emotional about things that are not actually real in their life. So the people who run our movies, the people who run Hollywood, are of course part of this Marxist agenda. They follow these ideas. And the reason they follow these ideas, we'll get into that later. But they fully understand this, and they've perfected this so well over about the course of 100 years, which is realistically about how long cinema has been out. And the way that they do this is they take the things that represent the past and the things that are so archetypally important to a people. So for Americans, that'd be the Wild West, for example. Archetypes that are important in the Wild West. They take the strong, grit-filled, Faustian spirit man who is just forging his way in a new world and have a beautiful fucking family and start a new lineage in a new land. They take that kind of archetype and they throw things in like, oh, here's an immigrant. Oh, here's a prostitute that gets somehow a lot of power. Oh, here's this, and they always make the man look a little bit. They make the man look stupid or dumb. White men are always portrayed as evil or stupid. Women are always portrayed as goddesses who can't do any wrong. They're these infallible queens, and they're always right. And then, of course, immigrants and minorities and people who don't have these inherent qualities that the white man has that makes him, got to be careful with my wording here. Those minorities are, of course, exacerbated and given power in these films. Keep in mind, these films still hold the archetypes that are extremely emotionally important to the white man and to the white civilization. And therefore, through the stories that are being told, through the emotions that are being elicited through this story, and through the cinema is very impactful. The way that cinema, it's beautiful. At the end of the day, it truly is. And it's really sad that it's been hijacked. But it is so good at emotionally programming people that it works. It truly works. And when combined with the things that I just talked about, combined with the beautiful soundtracks, the beautiful shots, the timing, the actors, the humor, it's so immersive, cinema is. And it's no surprise that it has done the damage that it's done. And similar themes are seen with our music. Our music is very similarly controlled by the same Marxist people. We don't have beautiful music anymore. We have very sharp, short, degenerate songs. And when you look at, let's take country, for example, which you probably didn't expect me to say. You're probably thinking I was going to talk about rap. It has these underlying themes in all the popular country that work for these agendas that I've been discussing for the past 40 minutes. So usually most country songs are always talking about how fucking head over heels or sad men are over women now. Oh, this whore left me. Oh, I'm going to kill myself. Oh, I'm so sad. Oh, I'm going to drown myself in beer, Which, therefore, accelerates the demasculinization or the the lowering of what makes a man. It makes him into a bitch. It accelerates that. That occurring helps the social engineering happen, the replacement happen, and generally the turning of 99% of the population into cattle happen. Getting closer to the last man, as Nietzsche's idea, happen. That's what that, for an example. And you can apply, you really start to see these themes. When you kind of start to realize this, it really accelerates over time. And there's so many examples, and you just cannot stop seeing it once you realize it's everything. It's the books, it's the clothing. I might be sounding a little bit schizophrenic, but it's literally the fucking clothing. I'm telling you. Okay. So that's generally why it works. You can apply that same emotional programming to the news, of course. A lot of people still watch the news. Some children watch the news even. The news uses stories that are they hit maximums, emotional maximums. So they'll show you a local car crash where 5 kids died or something that is extremely sad, something that is just painful. And they'll do the same thing using fear, using happiness, and using concern, and using a sort of story that is twisted in a way that sort of masturbates the social engineering that has occurred to the viewer. That's a big one. That's a big one to wrap your head around. Using that accelerates everything I've been talking about too. So that's how this all works. But why are the people who are doing it? And who are the people that are doing it? I'm sure if you look at my other videos, you probably figure out what group of people is doing this, other than just the stereotypical globalists, the Marxists, the New World Order, the elites, the elite class, the World Economic Forum people. It's a little bit, you can dumb it down to a little bit more of a specific group. But these people, the reason they are doing what they are doing, because they have fallen into a trench that is, it's almost inverted. To put this into the perspective of a Christian, These people are literal demons. That's the best way I can put it. These people are they are anti-life. They're the most, just, even if you are not religious in any way, these people are evil. They're so fucked up. Regardless of who you are, if you are not a part of these people, you will agree with this. People from Uganda agree with this. There's hate for these people out of every single, they all agree with this. And that is because, it's not because these people are superior than us. It's not because these people are better. It's because these people, they by nature lack a sort of love of life. They lack love, they lack life, they lack everything that makes humans human. All they have is greed. All they have is pity. It's resentment. That's all these people have. They hate everyone who isn't them. And they want to enslave us. And they want to rape, kill us, piss on our bodies, and laugh. And never forget that. It doesn't matter if you're from Malaysia. It doesn't matter if you're from Iraq. It doesn't matter if you're from Chile. It doesn't matter if you're from Canada. These people all see us the same. We are, I've said it a lot, but we are beasts to them. They see us as cattle. They don't see us as people. They hate life so much. They cannot stand it. That is why they've done what they've done. That is why I don't want to get into specifics, because I'd really like for this video to get pushed. If you know, you know. You know, this is why they do the things that they do. They don't have any love in their hearts. They don't have any care for people who aren't like them. They are so just, they're not cool, man. That's why they do what they do with our money. That's why they literally, I was going to make a separate video about this. But if you're working $20 an hour, these people can literally make your life energy, your time on this planet, your precious time on this planet, less valuable. With a press of a button, they can raise inflation, they can deny you loans, they can raise your interest rates, they can completely change the economy just like that. They can sell off a bunch of stocks or houses, whatever it is, bonds. And in my opinion, that ability to just like that, make life less livable, less beautiful, literally make your time on this earth less or more valuable with that much amount of control is evil. It's demonic. It literally materializes you into a number. It dehumanizes you just like that. Just the money side of things dehumanizes you immediately. They have so much power that these people are, by my definition of what makes life life, these people are literally the opposition by nature. Anybody who disrespects life to this extent and does what they have done and does what they do and does what they plan to do and are still doing is, in my eyes, just purely a disgrace. And I want to make it clear, I'm pretty sure you've probably figured out the group that I'm talking about. Not everybody in this group is what I've just described them as. Not everybody. It's just they have a natural tendency to exfoliate those things that I just talked about to an insanely evil extent, just off the charts. But it's not all of them. I just want to make that clear. So the reason that they have been so successful at their goals so far with the creation of their state and the double standard shit that they get away with is because they are extremely moralist. They don't have any morals. They don't have any right or wrong in their brain. All it is their greed, right? All they have is, does this perpetuate me? Does this perpetuate and my greed and my desires? That's pretty much all they think about. And some of them think about it in a more tribal way, which is also why they're so successful. They think about, will this perpetuate the state where I come from? Will this perpetuate my people? And that makes them successful. That is why they have been so successful at puppeting us and getting away with what they get away with. It's It's because they have that as their metaphysical existence. And a big twist of this video is that metaphysical existence is part of the innate meaning of life for white men too. That is why they say that it's so dangerous that we take that same approach. For a white man to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to start living my life for the protection of my people, for the existence and the future of my people, for the perpetuation of my heritage, of my homeland, of my country, the infinite voyage that is the unknown, the pushing of my life and the life of my descendants into something higher. A white man saying that is seen as evil. But a person from this country, or a person from this group that I'm discussing about, that is how they think. That is how most of them think. And it's okay for them to think that way. I'm saying that it's okay for them to think that way. I'm not going to say that's wrong. But what is wrong is saying all you Goyim can't think that way. Only we can be tribalist. That is just ridiculous. That's not how nature works. Nature rewards tribalism. That is why white people are so self-sacrificial. That is why we're firefighters. That is why we die for other people. That is why we've been able to be programmed to be so empathetic towards minorities. Is because we have a very strong sense of collectivism and self-sacrificial ability to a greater purpose. Unfortunately, the rhetoric that has been socially engineered to our people has been that we can't do that. But this tiny group of individuals who are all trying to enslave us, yeah, it's okay if they do it, you know? I also want to make this clear. This isn't just about whites versus this group of individuals I'm talking about. This is everybody versus this group of individuals. It doesn't matter. They see us all the same. And this tribalist supremacy is it remains true in all people. This is why Indians, when they take over companies, only hire Indians. Severe nepotism. That's tribalist supremacy. That's what do too. For example, the double standard that I was talking about earlier, how they have double standards. They say it must be kept a ethno-state. But when a white guy says that in Europe, it's, how intolerant are you? How evil are you? Don't you have any empathy for these people? And part of the reason that a vast majority of the population would also respond in that way is because of post-war guilt. It's because of what happened under World War II, and the events that happened there have been so well placed in this programming, in the movies, in the books, in the rhetoric, in the history that we are taught. These events that happened under World War II, and the people they blame, the people they make us feel so ashamed that it programs us so well that it's almost like a script that these people go off of. And they say, if you hold any belief that is in any way similar to those people who did those things, apparently did those things, you should be dehumanized. You're evil. And that stems from this programming that I'm talking about. They have been programmed to believe that. And the people that are coming to Europe, these Muslims, they are fleeing from lands that are being bombed and genocided by Israel. And you might say, well, why doesn't Israel have more diversity? Why only do white countries need more diversity? And it would say, well, it would ruin our culture. That's what we're saying. So you guys can say that and we can't? It's these double standards. And the reason that they protect them so much, and the reason they refuse that we have what they have in Israel, is because they know how powerful it would make us. And it would make us unenslavable. You can't enslave somebody who doesn't have, who has a very hard meaning to their life that it doesn't correlate with your agenda. And this small group of individuals are so moralist in the way that they facilitate their goals. They're so evil about it in the way that they do it. Not all of them. I want to make that clear again. But they're very, very deceptive, and they're extremely good at manipulation and making life, dumbing down life. And they have so much control and so much dogmatism in their agenda that these ideas have not been able to be, the things that I've said in this video would have gotten me terminated from this platform 5 years ago. You know, it's only these past few months really that these ideas have been exacerbated so much that even on normal platforms like this, they can kind of start to be talked about. I'm flying pretty close to the sun with this one. The movement is growing. You know, 1 year ago, these ideas were still relatively starting to grow. They're very small still, but that's why the social engineering happens. That's why it works. That's who's behind it. And that's why they hold the beliefs that they do, because they're dogmatic about wanting to enslave us, that they go to the extent of pretty much emotionally programming us to be ineffective. And oftentimes, at a minimum, usually we are more than ineffective. We actually help them. Most people actually help them, you know. This programming that they do and that they teach through all the vessels that they own and create and exfoliate their ideas through, they just neuter us. And when we get together, it doesn't take much, man. It really doesn't take much. All you need is a few 100,000 people who hold my ideas and who realize this truth that I'm discussing to get pissed off enough. We can really take back control. It doesn't take much. And how I see this, and how a lot of people in this movement see this isn't just some. It's really hard to explain in words. We almost see it as a. This is the turning point. This is when life either takes its direction towards fucking greatness, becoming beautiful, exfoliating and embracing life, or we become slaves. That is the truth about this time period. And you'll realize a lot of people have realized this that haven't realized the other things that I've discussed in this video. So you'll take people that are like self-help, and they'll say these things. They'll say like, yeah, they're trying to make the poor more poor, and they're trying to make the rich more rich. Yeah. Wow, are you a genius? You just fucking realized this. Okay, this is why, though. This is why they're doing this. And if they succeed in doing this, with the way that technology is evolving and the ability that they'll have to survey us and the ability that they'll have to censor us, if something doesn't happen soon, we're done for. Because technology and a surveillance police state would give this group of individuals so much ability to keep us down that there wouldn't really be a chance. And that chance has to happen very soon, or else it won't happen. Because these elites, in the elite class, these people hold such a just drastic holding, disproportionate amount of people in the elite class compared to their population, and they are so tribalist, and they are taught to be tribalist. That is the difference. They are socially engineered to be tribalist. They don't even. This is what I'm saying. You don't even have to be socially engineered to be tribalist. Tribalism is the default option. That is the default way of thinking about the world. And there's evidence of this everywhere. When Muslims go to Europe, and when Muslims invade new countries and do what they do, and when Indians come to first world countries, Indians weren't socially engineered, bro. They're coming from a third world country. And they still elicit such strict tribalism and nepotism. That's proof enough that tribalism is the innate human option, the innate worldview. And that we have to be socially engineered to be, distracted out of it, to be subdued out of it. And it takes a little bit. And of course, these resources that are being used to socially engineer us are coming from us ourselves. Alrighty. Hopefully that wasn't too schizophrenic. I was trying to keep it understandable. They never got rid of these ideas that we've discussed. They've only shoved them to the side. We're back. And if you think that my content or the things that I say in these videos or the other content that I have on other platforms is cringe, you can go fuck yourself. You're probably one of those who thinks that everything is a LARP. If you're not a depressed, atheistic, Reddit scrolling, video game playing, you're LARPing. Fucking kill. How about you go LARP as a If you find this cringe, you have been socially engineered. On another note, hopefully you enjoyed. Check out my channel for a little bit more structured videos. The one that's most relevant to this one is tribalist supremacy and cultural Marxist emotional programming, or anti-racist bigotry, liberalism's relation to totalitarianism, and its grounding in materialism. Those are both solid videos that I really enjoyed making. Thanks, bye.